Cashiers. What was the worst time you blew up on a customer? This woman who used to come into the coffee shop I managed was the real-world equivalent of Dolores Umbridge. She was smug, obnoxious, and delighted in being a giant pain. She came in daily and had a ridiculously complicated drink order which she was unnecessarily nitpicky about. She came in one day when our grinder was having issues, which I warned her about. I happened to be at the register and not at the bar, and so my employee, who was my best employee at the time, made the drink. She took it and left. The next day, she came in, and before she even hit the register, she announced very rudely in my general direction, "You're making my drink, right?" I switched places with the person on the bar in order to make it, as her drink was so wildly complicated it took several minutes to make, throughout which I was told how terrible her drink had been yesterday, how it had ruined her day, how she'd lost faith in the company, etc., etc. I apologized profusely and offered to comp her drink. That wasn't good enough. She told me she wanted the person who made her drink before fired. I lost my temper. I more or less told her that I was sorry that her drink was not up to par the day before, but that I had apologized, offered a free beverage, and had actually warned her we were having an equipment issue the day before, which was likely the culprit and not my employee. She told me I must have woken up on the wrong side of the bed, and I said, "No, actually, you are a giant pain. Your order is obnoxious and we bend over backwards to accommodate you daily." She had a whole list of things aside from the crazy drink. It had to be served with a certain number of napkins. Her sleeve had to be facing a specific way, etc. And if that's how you feel, please just take your business elsewhere. Coffee Umbridge tutted her way out of my shop in a huff, and I didn't even care if I got in trouble for telling her off. I didn't. I know, right? He should just pull out a coffee stirrer or straw and wave it at her and say, "Avra cadabra, woman, here's your drink, go make it yourself." Story 2. Had a customer come in to do a return on a toilet seat. Not to me, but the customer service person. She tells him store policy is we don't do returns on seats out of plastic. He starts telling her he just took it out to check it and it's not the right shape. She repeats store policy and there's no manager here to override it. It's literally impossible for us to return it. He doesn't like this and starts raising his voice and trying to pester her. She's super quiet and shy, so she kind of just shuts down. The other cashier says very loudly, "It's dirty. He didn't just take it out of the seat. He's a liar." He became incredibly angry. I reached over and hit her light and said, "You're on a break. Go upstairs." She protested, but I repeated and she left. He said, "What did that woman say?" I reply, "Don't worry about it. I'll handle it later. We aren't doing your return." He starts to protest again, but I cut him off. "I don't care. I don't care what you did or what you have to say. We aren't doing your return today. So you've got two options. Take your toilet seat home and come back tomorrow and talk to a manager, or take your seat and get out of here. Either way, you're leaving here with that seat." He left. Managers became required to be there on weekends, and someone bought me some M&Ms. Story 3. This wasn't me, but I was involved. When I was in high school, I worked at a shoe store. The one with that prize wheel from hell. We did this buy one, get one half off sale all the time. Now, the way it works is you buy a more expensive pair and you get the cheaper of the two half off, otherwise we'd lose money. So this woman comes in and buys 2 pairs of kids' shoes, looks at the receipt and thinks that $50 is too much for her smaller child, so she returns them. She then proceeds to flip out because the difference for the other pair came out of the refund. I called the manager and he came up and she said, "He's a foster kid, he's not worth a $50 pair of shoes. Stop trying to rob me and give me my money." So the manager refunded her the entire bill and took both pairs of shoes and walked off. We all gave her the silent treatment until she left, angrily. I feel bad for both the children and her husband who were just standing there quietly. And this is when you call CPS and notify them of that because for sure there's gotta be worse things happening at home, right? Or at least threaten that to them right in front of her. Story 4. Back when I worked admissions for a popular tourist attraction in Hollywood, guest hands me a coupon, $8 off per ticket. Me, "Your total is $44. Guest, "You forgot to include the coupon." Me, "I included the coupon. Ticket is $30. I point to the sign next to me. So for the two of you, that's 60 minus 8, and minus 8 again is $44. Guest, "Did you include the coupon?" Me, "I included the coupon. $30 per ticket. 2 tickets are $60 minus $8 and minus another $8. That's $44. Guest, 16. Me, "Right, I took 16 off." Guest, "No, the ticket price is $16. Me, "No, it's $22 with the coupon." Guest, "How much is the regular ticket price?" Me, $30. Guest, "Coupon is for how much?" Me, $8 off. Guest, "Right, so that brings the price down to 16. Me, No it doesn't. Guessed, $30 minus $8, right? Me, yes. Guessed, 16. Me, no, 22. Guessed, forget it. What's my total? Me, $44. Guessed, did you include the coupon this time? Me, yes. Guess, how does it come to $44? Me, ticket price is $30. You gave me a coupon for $8 off, which brings the price down to 20. Guess 16. Me, 22. There are two of you. Two tickets come to $44. Guessed, did you include the coupon? Me, yes. Guessed, how much is a ticket? Me, $30. Guessed, what about the coupon? Me, coupon brings it down to $22. Guessed, not $16? Me, not 16. Guessed, why not 16? Me, because that's not what math is. Holy crap, me just reading that story already annoyed me, and at that point, I genuinely would have pulled out a piece of paper and drawn 30 little lines and crossed out 8 and asked him to count each one. Story 5. I was a server several years ago, and this woman, usually a pretty nice lady, came in, and apparently we had messed up her salmon a few days prior, so the manager had given her a free meal card, which is good enough for one single meal. Well, a few days later, she comes in with at least 15 people about an hour before we close, and they all order seafood and steak and wine, and her whole party is awful to me and my friend, who is another server. One guest even threw his plate on the ground, breaking it and throwing food all over because his steak was overcooked. After all of this, the other server went to take the woman her check, and it was a couple $100, and she whips out the free meal card. The server takes it to the register and comps one of the meals off and comes back with a new total, and the woman loses it. I have a free meal card. This was one meal for all of us. It should be free. And the server just stiffens up and politely explains that that isn't how it works, and stresses that she had to have known that she couldn't have brought 15 people in here and expected free meals for everyone. The woman stands up and pours her red wine all over my friend, and my friend just goes, "What in the world?" and runs to the back to get the manager. She kept her calm honestly, but the manager flipped and told her to get the hell out and never come back. That was a crazy night. Story 6. I had a guy come through my register once wanting to put some stuff on his store credit card. He didn't have the card or any ID, so I couldn't ring him through. Technically, I could, but against SOP. He started screaming at me saying that everyone knew him there and that he was a regular. I was at my job for over a year and never saw that man once in my time working there before this incident. I told him no, I couldn't ring him through without the card or ID, but I could hold his stuff at the register until he comes back. He proceeded to be more belligerent and in my face, so I told him in an assertive tone, "You need to leave. You can't be yelling at staff." He leaves and comes back an hour later to buy his stuff, but still no ID or card. I proceed to tell him I can't ring him in again because he starts screaming, wanting the ASM to come. Stupid ASM has no spine and tells me to ring the guy through, then goes back to the floor or wherever he was before. As soon as the ASM left, I told the customer to leave and that he wasn't welcome at the store anymore. Never saw him again after that. Story 7. When I worked at the subway in high school, there was this one guy in his 30s that came in with his wife almost every day. He was a schmuck and talked to you like an idiot. Not because he was in a bad mood either, but because he thought it was funny to be mean to kids working fast food jobs. One day I had enough and took his sandwich I was in the middle of making and spiked it into the garbage can and told him to get off. He told me I couldn't talk to customers that way, and I told him, "I just did, you stupid." He called the owner and dropped my name. We had name tags, and she told him that if I blew up on him like that, it was probably well-deserved and asked him to not return. I for sure thought I was fired. Lucky for me, the owner knew exactly what customer she was talking to and knew me well enough to know it takes a lot to get me irritated and that I wouldn't do something like that for no reason. Story 8. I worked at a sandwich place for a year or so and had multiple bad experiences with customers, but this one takes the cake. I was making this dude a hot chicken sandwich. I bring the sandwich up to the front and try to hand it to him. He just looks at me for a second, then proceeds to scream and swear at me for spitting in his sandwich. I didn't do anything with his food. Kinda wish I did though. And told him this over and over. The dude was yelling at me for probably like 5 minutes. I was patient with him and gave him a new sandwich made by a different employee and totally refunded his order. But this dude decided that he wanted to be a schmuck, so he hung around the store telling customers I was going to do something in their food and swearing a ton. I waited for my manager to step forward and kick the guy out, but he was just pretending nothing was going on. Finally, as I was making food for this family with really young kids, who were obviously uncomfortable with this dude's language, I freaking lost it. I slammed down the utensil I was using, startling everyone because I had been so respectful to this guy for so long, and screamed, "We are a family friendly establishment, so you can quit being a schmuck and get the hell out of the store." And for whatever reason, that worked and he left, cussing me out. I apologized to the family for the guy and for my swearing at him. I nearly lost my job from that and got a long lecture from my boss about how the customer is always right and that I need to be respectful. Luckily, my manager vouched for me, saying that I was extremely respectful until the guy started making other customers uncomfortable. I quit that job a few months later, glad to be done with dumb customers. Story 9. I carded a woman trying to buy cigarettes who got really mean when I didn't just give it to her. It was in her car, so she left and came right back. When I held out my hand for it, she tried to fling it at my face and missed. I fell on the floor behind the counter and I refused to pick it up. I called for the next customer and started ignoring her. When she asked for it back, I gave her permission to come around the corner to get it. It was petty, but at the moment I wasn't going to budge. She called the cops and said I stole it. When they came, I explained what happened. He gave her a really annoyed look and she yelled, "Make him give it to me," then looks back at me. He literally ordered me to pick it up. I'd honestly rather lose my job, but I was afraid of what would happen if I refused an officer. So I picked it up and gave it to her. She got the satisfaction of winning and got to leave with a big smug look on her face. Afterwards, the officer apologized and said he was basically afraid of upsetting her. I was dangerously close to calling him a coward. Story 10. I was doing supervisory work in online retail customer service, had a customer escalate to me about an item she refused and changed her mind, and the first agent hadn't let her return the item. The sticking point in her account was that this lady had a ridiculous ratio of returns and we started to restrict her ability to return things. Anywho, she's going off about how bad the first agent was and how I was even worse, and how bad our policies were. She'd gone on for about 10 minutes and I was literally just flipping through tabs on Amazon as half listened to the tirade. Finally, she starts raising her voice and screams at me, "Well, what do you do when you buy something and change your mind, huh?" Again, I was basically zoned out for several minutes while looking over 28mm miniature terrain pieces, so my filter had fallen. I immediately respond, "I remember that it didn't work out and I move on with my life." She full stopped her rant and her tone went straight to confusion. "What about when you want to return something?" "Miss, I haven't returned a single thing in 32 years except Blockbuster rentals." She seemed completely taken aback by the idea that someone would live like that. She calmed down, apologized, and ended the call shortly after. She kept ordering and her return rate dropped down to normal levels. The funny part is that within a month of that talk, I actually did return something for the first time. My dad ordered a coat for me for Christmas and neglected to check the size, so I got a small instead of the large I needed, exchanged that right out. One time I talked to several ladies who were all too happy to let you know that they'd spent thousands of dollars with us as some kind of untouchable get-out-of-jail-free card. However, the majority of people who were in that club were usually heavy complainers who got things refunded. By my guess, most of the accounts we had around $40,000 to $50,000 in sales had anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000 in refunds and credits. Normal reps can't bring that up to you, but trust and believe I had to remind some people that they had only spent $50,000 with us because they had so many refunds and credits for items we largely never got back. I always found it funny because I talked to 3 separate customers with $200,000 plus in sales, and not one of them exceeded $5,000 in refunds and/or credits. One of these ladies was apologizing to me about an issue with a wrong item she received, and you know what her stats looked like? $200,000 in sales, less than $500 in refunds and credits combined over a decade. This chick was legit emotional about even having to call this issue in, but it was a gift and yada yada yada. Not one angry word about me or the company. She understood how things are, and she told me all of this before I got a chance to really talk to her. I apologized, hooked her up with a refund, sent another of the broken items out 2-day air at no charge, and gave her $100 in store credit to help with the upcoming holiday season. Easy call. She spent it and another $500 by the end of the day. I never did things like that for people who complain to take advantage of us. I think a lot of people are bad at understanding how a good attitude towards customer service people will completely change your world. Story 11. I never blew up on a customer that I remember, but one time I showed up to my job that I hated at Dollarama in the morning. In the evenings, the staff is supposed to put away all the misplaced product back on the shelves, facing, I think it was called. We would organize it by aisle, then take each basket and put everything away. Standard stuff. Anyway, I show up in the morning and it's only me and my witch boss, entitled and all disrespectful. There were supposed to be about 5 of us for the shift, but we had 3 no-shows or sick call-ins. All the merge from the night before that was supposed to be put away was still not done. So it was only me and my boss with extra work from the night before. Luckily, it wasn't too busy, but my boss decided that she'll sit at the register with no customers while I put away all the merge from the night before. Fine, she has seniority and I'd rather be doing something than nothing. I finished one basket and as I'm coming back for the other 9, she has the gall to say, "You're not done yet? Could you hurry it up?" You are welcome to grab a basket. Story 12. I was a manager of a CVS, and during one extremely busy time of the day, I opened up the photo lab register to help the regular cashiers keep the lines down. I announced that I am open, and the nearest customer happily took her merchandise to my register. Then the second nearest customer started loudly saying that she was first and it was her turn. I said she will be the next after I take care of this customer. When it was her turn, she started going off on me that it was rude of me to not help her, blah, blah, blah. I ignored her as much as possible. She kept going on and on until I said, "Lady, I opened this register as a favor so the wait time would be shorter. If you would rather wait in one of the regular register lines, you are more than welcome." She was shocked that I talked back to her. She didn't realize that I was the manager. She found one of the employees who was stocking a shelf in the candy aisle and demanded that she speak to a manager. That employee called for a manager over the intercom, and I happily walked over to candy aisle to see her waiting for a manager. With a big smile on my face, I let her know that I was the manager on duty. She walked out of the store without saying a word. I was off of work like an hour later, but apparently she sent her husband in looking for me, but I was at home by then. They complained to corporate. I was told to not take my job so personally, and that was it. Story 13. This woman was acting like a rude woman. She was a regular, but not in a, "Hey, how are the kids" kind of way, but in a, "Oh no, here comes this lady and her loud kids again" kind of way. She was normally tolerable. This day, she decided to have an attitude while I was still with a customer ahead of her by slamming her few items down on the belt and sighing because her time is obviously more precious than others. I finished with my customer and she starts talking about sales and how prices were wrong, having a tone. I refused to change any prices. More attitude came and she said she should call the manager but was in a hurry, so she pulled her $20 bill out of her clothes and unfolded it and held it out for me to take. I just looked at her, disgusted. "I can't take that." "Why not?" Immediate rage ensues. "I can't take money from your clothes." "What? It's my clothes. That's your clothes. I'm not like a dirty person. I don't know that." And then her eyes lit up. "Where is your manager? Where is your manager?" Manager doesn't work at night anymore, and he's not my manager. I'm his supervisor. "I'll take your money right now, but next time I won't take anything from your clothes." I took it by pinching the corner of it, tossing it under my drawer dramatically as to not mix it with my clean money, gave her her change and told her to have a nice day. She was mad, livid even. I was so sick of that job and at that point ended up quitting a few months later. I had a reputation as an angel. I was pretty much a pushover with customers. That day, I was just done. So that's the worst I ever treated a customer, LOL. Story 14. I only ever lost it on a customer once when I was working at an office supply store. So customer was one of these self-important money pusher types. Came in during the lunch rush on a day when we were short-handed. He wanted to buy a phone. I normally would have helped him, but I was stuck at the register. I did everything I could to help this guy anyway. When I was finally able to focus on him exclusively, he launched into a lecture along the lines of how he specifically was the most important person in the store, and I lost it. I barely remember what I said to the guy. I know I tried to walk away first, but he pushed it. I ended up tearing into him so badly he basically ran from the store and the assistant manager on duty was too stunned to do anything about the incident. I hated that job. Quit not long after. And if you're relating to any one of the stories in this video so far, please do remember to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos just like this. Story 15. Not a cashier exactly, but a bartender. There was a hotel next to the restaurant and bar I worked at, which often would bring in crews of construction workers and other types of traveling workers. Most behaved themselves just fine, and some of my favorite regulars were seasonal workers who stayed next door. There were crass, classless individuals from time to time, though. Usually a quick comment that they're in a restaurant, not a sports bar, was enough to calm them down, but not this group. They came in on a Friday, were loud, rude, and vulgar, making passes at waitresses and irritating other guests. I ended my shift while they were still there, and when I arrived the next day, I was informed that they followed a waitress out to her car and wouldn't let her leave. They blocked her from getting into her car, and when she finally was able to get past them, they stood in front of her car and jeered, making rude gestures and remarks. Eventually, the kitchen guys came out and they left. They showed back up the next night, and I was instructed to deal with them if they would come back after the GM went home, which of course they did. So we started with the usual deal. You're not welcome back due to your behavior. Please leave, etc. The foreman, or whatever he was, insisted it was all a joke and that I needed to get a sense of humor. His exact words were, "You need to go to the dollar store and buy a sense of humor." Whatever that means. So this goes on for a bit. He actually had the gall to ask for a refund for the previous night. I declined, and as this conversation continued, I began to lose my patience. The guy got more belligerent and insulting and repeated his weird dollar store comment multiple times. I finally lost my patience, roughly the 400th time he said this, and said, "Ah, the dollar store, huh? Is that where you get your dental work done? You have 10 seconds to get the hell out of this bar before I call the cops." I could tell this was a sore spot for him as he looks like he chewed rocks every day for breakfast. He deflated quickly as several patrons and most of the waitstaff witnessing this laughed at him openly. He left quietly and didn't come back. Clearly, he thought the dollar store comment was a clever thing to keep bringing up, and it kind of just shows how cheap his humor is, like literally. Story 16. Worked at a sandwich shop. I get assigned to train a new girl who was shadowing me at my register. A big woman comes in with two other gentlemen and she orders a croissant sandwich with no tomatoes, sub, avocado. I proceed to try and explain to her that I can't do that, as tomatoes and avocado are not equivalent. I don't even get that far because she interrupts me, starts to mock the way I was talking to her, tells me that they've done it for her before. I stand my ground and tell her regardless if someone else had done it before, I wasn't going to because that's not how it works. I was trying to make my point to a trainee. She gets so angry, says some things to me, then looks at my trainee and says, "Don't learn from her, Cynthia, she's a bad one." She then struggles to pay with her credit card because she's broke apparently and gives me lip when I tell her her card was declined. When she walks away, the two gentlemen she's come with come up to me and apologize for her. I was so checked out, I just said, "You're the one who has to deal with her every day, not me." Story 17. I had already put in my 2 weeks notice at the gas station when a woman came in with a van and tried to pump gas with the vehicle running. I tell her over the intercom to shut the engine off. She started to argue with me over the intercom and I just turned it off to deal with the small lineup inside. She comes inside and starts arguing with me. I calmly told her the rules are for safety and if she wants to fuel while the engine is on, she can try another gas station. She started screaming at me, I'm just being mean to ruin her day. I just snapped in front of her and everybody and yelled back, "Oh, really? Am I in your place of business pestering you for following the rules so people don't be harmed?" To which all of the other customers laughed. She kept arguing back, so I said, "Fine, go fill your tank." And as soon as she was outside, I locked the doors. I told the customers they could leave if they wished by pushing the black handle. Nobody did until the irate customer sped off. Story 18. Last night, actually. I work at a hotel and around 10:30ish, a woman called down very upset about noise from outside. The hotel is downtown and it was a Saturday night and also 4:20. People were partying. Anyway, she tells me to fix it now, and I inform her that the noise ordinance for our city, as far as private residences, doesn't kick in until midnight, so I can't do anything until then as far as calling the cops goes. I offer to move her to a different room on another side of the hotel away from the noise source. She refuses, saying it was late. She demanded I come up with another solution. I tell her there isn't one. I can call the cops, but they won't do anything until at least midnight, probably later. I again tell her that we have other rooms in a quieter area of the hotel, but she begins to shout that she doesn't want to move and just wants me to make them be quiet. And this is when I flipped. I didn't yell at her, but I did say something along the lines of, "Ma'am, I have offered you the only solution I have to this problem and you have refused it twice. At this point, I can't do anything to help you." She got angry and threatened to call our corporate office, and I told her she was welcome to do that and that I looked forward to speaking with them and gave her my name. Then I hung up on her. Not the most entertaining, but God, that was frustrating. Story 19. Old lady came in for a refund, which I processed. Turns out she wanted an extra item for her time coming back. It was literally 58 pence for an already reduced loaf of bread. After getting the refund, she proceeded to ask for a scratch card for free for the hassle of coming in. I said, "No, you can have another loaf of bread though." "No, I want what I want, not what you want," and knocked over a stack of Pringles in front of the checkouts. At this point, I was already disinterested in going further with this, and my staff were getting a bit worried, so I signed off the till and told her if she doesn't leave in 30 seconds, I will have to escort her out of the shop or call the police. "No, you won't. I have rights. I didn't come all this way to be treated like this." And I'm like, I didn't come to work today to be treated like this by an old hag like you. You want to act like a child, I'm going to treat you like one. God, I never heard anyone shout as loud after that, but she quickly left after I embarrassed her in a long line of people. Story 20. All right, hold on to your hats, ladies and gents. So I work in a place that is funded by a university. Basically, all these small walk-in customers don't make us money, nor do we need them. This gives me a little leeway when it comes to customer service. So we had this old guy that would come in and print stuff. We are a print center. Anyways, he would always try to talk to our managers because they were men and the rest of us were women. When he would come in and out, managers were gone, he would be rude to the employees and complain. So here's a background. Now, one night he comes in and I was alone helping two other customers. They were Asian and black. He placed himself in front of them and basically acted like they weren't there. I told him he would have to wait as I was helping them, and he said, "It doesn't matter, they're darker skinned and used to waiting." Honestly, I was so thrown off by his outright prejudice, so all I said was, "Please move and I'll be with you in a second." I helped the two customers and they moved to the side to look at their prints. Then the old guy comes up and hands me his flash drive. I asked him for the file name and how he wanted it printed. He called me stupid and that I should know these things. I told him that I didn't appreciate the way he was talking to me. He continued to berate me for a little bit, and then once I got a word in, I told him that I would not be printing his things and he has to leave. This threw him over the edge because we were the only print shop around that was open that late and he needed his stuff printed by tomorrow morning. So I told him that if he would like my help, he could go outside and turn his attitude around, and then once he gets his head on straight and apologizes, he can come back. Lo and behold, he leaves. I apologized to the earlier customers and they said if he makes a complaint, they'd back me up on what happened. After they left, he came back and said, "What's your name? I want to know your name." I said, "My name is Cindy and my manager's name is Mike. Feel free to talk to him later." He tried handing me his flash drive and I said that I wanted an apology first. He became flustered again and started yelling at me for being a disrespectful little girl. Now, I'm a college-age woman. I honestly could care less, so then I basically told him to get out and that if he ever comes back, I'll just call security on him. Story 21. I work at a gas station, pretty popular, although small. We have a problem with solicitors in my town, so we are heavy on banning people from our store when someone comes in and asks our actual customers to buy something for them or begs for gas money or asks for change to cover something they want to buy. For this one guy, I know he was homeless and had a disability of some kind, although I can't be sure what since he seemed coherent and capable of picking up heavy items he wanted. But after seeing him come into my store night after night with not enough change, constantly repeating what the price of a 2-liter of Mountain Dew was while someone was standing at the register, and finally wanting to buy drinks and cigars, I had enough. I told him flat out with a line full of people one night that it was the last time I wanted to see him in my store and to never come back. I refused to sell drinks to him or cigars without an ID, which he never had on him, ever. He got angry and left saying he wasn't going to come back. I stopped doing night shifts for a while and eventually had them after a couple of weeks. The guy showed back up and I was stocking cups. He placed a 2-liter of Mountain Dew on the counter and said to him, "Don't think I forgot about you. Get out." I haven't had to call the police yet, but I'm very close to doing it with this guy. I do not tolerate those who do not follow directions. Story 22. Guy came in and was buying a 2-liter of soda. As I'm ringing him up, he asked for a bag. I say, "Okie dokie," and continue to finish the part of the transaction I was currently working on. He asked for a bag again. I figure he didn't hear me the first time, so I say it again, a little louder, but continue to finish the transaction first. When he asked for a bag the third time, I straight up say okay while looking at him in the face. He asked me what okie dokie means and if I speak English. Being that I'm like 7th generation American and white as fresh fallen snow, I'm genuinely surprised that this dude has never heard the phrase okie dokie and proceed to tell him that yes, I speak English and that okie dokie is slang. At that point, he starts throwing coins to pay for this damn bottle of soda off the counter at me and I just snap. I void the transaction, remove his soda from my register and tell him that I'm refusing his service. Dude pushes back a little, but surprisingly doesn't demand my manager and eventually just leaves. The only time I've ever come close to just obliterating a customer and quitting on the spot was when some woman dropped the customer is always right" line in an angry tirade at me in front of my manager over her misunderstanding of what I said. More specifically, when she dropped the "I write your paycheck" line right after the customer line. I hope that dog flea medication was expired and didn't work. Story 23. I work at McDonald's, and one morning this older guy who's a regular at the place and was known to give the workers a hard time was trying to order breakfast and said he would want 8 extra sauces with his food. I told him that will cost extra because it's store policy and he got a bit agitated. He then tried ordering coffee and he kept on confusing me, saying he wanted this amount of condiments inside and this amount outside, and other special requests for his coffee, and I also couldn't really hear him the whole time. So I just pressed in everything on the register that I think he's trying to tell me, and when I finally repeat his order, he had a look of sheer anger on his face, raised his voice, and told me I have his whole order wrong. I told him I can change it, no problem, but he just proceeded to yell names at me, telling me I didn't know how to do my job and said, "Forget you, I'll go with the other cashier." By now, he had caused a scene and everyone was staring at me. It was truly awkward. And I was angry at the guy because I just tried to help him with his order, and soon after, when he got his food, he seemed like he had calmed down and tried to shake my hand and say sorry, but I slapped his hand away, shrugged, and told him something like, "Nah, bro, you gave me a hard time. Try something like that again, and I'll tell everyone to not give you service ever again." He didn't say a word and just left. Story 24. I worked at a Kmart, and me being fired was a joke of a concept because we were going out of business anyway and they were understaffed. So, to say the least, I could get away with a lot. One day, I was about to leave, a customer was pestering one of my fellow cashiers. The lady was trying to buy a Lego set for her son, an expensive one. I think it was originally priced at like $100 and was 80 to 85% off. However, the box it came in was pretty damaged, so she felt entitled to even more of a discount. Now, if you aren't aware, going out of business sales are as-is sales. This means that all the items sold are discounted and being sold in the condition they are in for that discounted price, no exceptions. This isn't set in place by Kmart employees or even the management staff. It is set by the persons for closing. I think that's the right term. Usually a parent or buyer company representative. She was demanding the cashier give her 20% extra off the already discounted price. The cashier tried to explain calmly and professionally how the system worked. Lady wasn't buying it and getting up in the cashier's face. Then she started using discriminating words against the cashier, who was Hispanic. This set me off. I want to preface before writing this next part that me and another coworker decided to dress overly nice for our last month so we would get mistaken as management. "Ma'am, what seems to be the problem?" "Your cashier is not cooperating with me." "Oh, how so?" "This item, whatever price it was, it's damaged and I should get a discount for that." "You are getting a discount, an 80 to 85% discount actually." "I should get more because it's damaged." "Well, this is an as-in sale, ma'am. Do you know what as-in sale means? It means the item being sold is sold as is, or are you too stupid to understand that?" "But I'm getting this for my child. Pieces could be missing." "If you feel like pieces could be missing, you are more than welcome to not buy the item and buy it full price somewhere else more reliable." "But I can't afford that." "Then I guess you can just not buy it." She stormed off after making a point to throw the Lego set onto the ground and remarked, "This is why your piece of garbage store is closing down." Actually, we just didn't hit the budget 2 years in a row because there was a Walmart right across from us. Wasn't really much of a blow up, I guess, but I am pretty calm and collective person usually. So it's the worst I have ever been to a customer. But it was so satisfying, and sometimes entitled people just need to be knocked down a peg, especially the ones who feel the need to make racial remarks to cashiers. Come on. Cashiers just want to afford food that week. Stop taking it out on them. Story 25. There's this woman who comes to buy stuff every day. She's really annoying. Every weekend, she'll come and buy whatever she needs and asks us to keep her groceries in there until she is back from walking the dogs. I don't get why she can't walk the dogs first and then go and shop for whatever she needs. Also, she always leaves the dogs for half an hour or so tied in the entry with them barking all the time and bothering everyone. When she is back from walking the dogs, she enters with them, and every time I tell her that dogs aren't allowed in there. Another day, I was about to leave because my shift was over. I was attending my last customer and told everyone else to go to another cashier. She comes to where I am and drops all her stuff in my place. I tell her that my shift is over and I'm leaving. She tells me that since she has already put her stuff in my place, I could just attend her. I tell her no, because I already told her that she should go to another cashier before she started putting her things in my place. She starts talking, but I ignore her and just leave. Then she demands to talk to someone in charge and says that I was rude to her. Everyone ignores her. And there's this other day that she got mad over a plastic bag. I don't know in other countries, but here in Spain, when you go to a supermarket, you have to pay for your bag. That's why a lot of people come with their own bags from home. Then she asks for a paper bag instead of a plastic bag. I tell her that we don't have paper bags. She looks up at me and down and tells me if I'm not going to ask someone, ask what? I say, ask someone if there are any paper bags. I already told you there are no paper bags. She then demands for me to go and ask someone else if there are any paper bags. I tell her that there is no paper bag. Never mind who she asks, the answer will be the same. I'm not asking anything. You're asking someone else if there are any paper bags. That's your job. My answer? That's not my job. Do you want a plastic bag or not? I have no time to waste, so quit this attitude or go to another place to buy your stuff. I said that, not yelling, but in a mad tone. She then pays for her stuff and leaves. Story 26. Christmas at a movie theater. Doesn't matter how many people you have scheduled for Christmas. Doesn't matter if everyone shows up. You're still short-handed. Usually one person would work the counter and the other would get the food ready, so you've got 2 people per register. I'm one of the more senior people working that day outside of management, most of whom are currently helping to clean the theater so we can admit the huge crowds in time, which meant that when something came up in the back that threatened to delay the making of popcorn, I had to go take care of it. Coworker tapped me on the shoulder, informed me of the issue. I went to go to the back and some guy standing in line yells out, "Don't leave the register, it's slow enough as it is and I'm hungry." I'm told that I turned red and actually started shaking from anger as I yelled at this guy about how I understood much better than him what it's like to be hungry, since I hadn't eaten all day so I could serve him and everyone else, about how I understood what it takes to make this place run efficiently better than he does since I'd been doing it for 2 years, and how if he wanted me to come back as quickly as possible, then I had to be allowed to do my job. If he didn't want me to do my job, then he could either leave or take my place. I don't actually remember that though. I just remember the crowd going quiet, me punching the coconut oil box open so they could hook it up, and then a manager making me take a 30-minute break. My hand hurt for a couple of days, but it was fine. And if you're connecting with any one of these stories, here's more for you. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. I'll catch you in that video.